You hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Welcome, folks. We're just getting started. We're going to be covering a little bit of the Roger Hillygus and Stewart Handte case out of Nevada, Reno, Nevada, and we're going to be giving you some updates on the court date coming tomorrow morning, as well as some. We're going to be watching the most recent court date from January of this year to give you guys a little bit of background. And we need court watchers, patriots, to show up at this court date tomorrow morning in Reno, Nevada. We'll have the information in the description, folks. Go ahead and check it out. Thank you for joining us. We will be getting started shortly. Sorry about that, folks. I had to call real quick. I'm just going to get started and get us right into it, and then I'll go take my call once I start the screen share and the previous coverage. The views expressed on the show are expressly the views of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views, beliefs, or opinions of News4US World, its broadcasters, or affiliates. Remember, folks, always use your own discernment when viewing. We encourage our viewers to think for themselves. You want to tell our viewers briefly what the case is, real quick, Allie, and what's going on, just for a minute?
Sure, I can do that. So basically, I was following the Susan Hillygus case. Susan was Roger's mother, who was taken over in guardianship fraudulently, and she was her estranged daughter put her in a assisted living, and she was being neglected and abused. And Roger wanted to get her. Well, she wanted to go see her brother. Susan wanted to go see her brother in California. Anyways, Roger wanted to get his mother out of there, and so he went to Stewart and he said, "Can you help me?" They went to the police. The police said, "Not involved. This is a civil matter," and so they basically rescued Susan, and it just turned into a nightmare after that, because they did a false silver alert on the mother, and they both got arrested, and all for helping an elderly woman. It's crazy how this turned out, or where we're at now. So
Thank you. I got a call coming in. We're going to start this, and then we'll go from there.
okay.
The warrant that was issued last winter, which then resulted in his apprehension and ultimate return to Washoe County.
All rise. The Second Judicial District Court in the state of Nevada is now in session. The Honorable Barry Breslow presiding.
Thank you, Deputy. Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. All right, we're on the record in case number CR 19-1535, A and B, State of Nevada versus Mr. Hillygus and Mr. Handte. The court acknowledges Prosecutor Mr. Steggy, Defense Counsel for Mr. Handte, Mr. Silverberg. Mr. Hante's present. Nice to see you. Good morning. Standby counsel who filed notice of acceptance of appointment of standby counsel, Ms. Reynolds, and also Mr. Hillygus. Welcome. Court set this hearing on an expedited basis after the court learned that Mr. Hillygus had been extradited back to Nevada. Multiple reasons. First, the court wanted to reset the psychological evaluations, the two, one by a psychiatrist, one by a psychologist, that the court had previously ordered last February. The court did not want Mr. Hillygus to linger in the Washoe County Jail unnecessarily while these were being reestablished. The court also wanted to have standby counsel for Mr. Hillygus's benefit so that if issues arose in the manner in which these evaluations would be reset or conducted, he would have the ability to confer with such standby counsel to assist him with respect to his legal rights. In addition to that, of course, after the evaluations occur, we're all aware that in the event a conclusion is reached which is inconsistent with either party's view of what the evaluation opinions should have been, either party has a right to challenge or traverse the findings. And so the court wanted to make sure that Mr. Hillygus had the benefit of standby counsel in the event the evaluations occur and he disagrees with their ultimate conclusions. Also, we are aware that when the evaluations go forward, it's possible that of the two evaluators, they reach inconsistent conclusions, in which case the court generally appoints a third evaluator to use a term, break the tie. And then that informs the court of the possible outcomes. Aside from the competency evaluations, the court wanted to make sure Mr. Hillygus had the benefit of standby counsel to assist him with any attempts to change his custody status. The warrant that was issued last winter, which then resulted in his apprehension and ultimate return to Washoe County, can likely be viewed as now subject to the recent Nevada Supreme Court decision in Johnston, where there's a pretrial violation. Somebody has their out of custody status revoked, they're apprehended, and then generally they're entitled to a prompt hearing. This case is nuanced because the court had concerns as to Mr. Hillygus' competency to proceed to adjudication. And so the issue of what his custody status is or will be in the very near future is in part a product of the evaluations. We also are aware that the evaluations are taking some time to occur. And furthermore, in the event the evaluations lead to a result, an opinion and a finding by the court that at this time Mr. Hillygus is not competent to proceed to adjudication, then that opens up a whole nother group of questions with respect to how he would be treated to competency. But of course that may never happen. It may be that he's evaluated and the evaluators conclude that he's competent to proceed. So, and then finally, the court wants to observe that we have in the Mr. Handte's case, we have an upcoming status hearing in February, which is designed, among other things, to address any pending pretrial motions. And the court is aware that filed yesterday was a motion to seek to change Mr. Handte's custody status, in particular the GPS device, because of the contact dermatology concerns, and also the fact that it's now felt by the defense that it's punitive. It's not. It's no longer a public safety issue or to secure his participation. But Judge, it's been enough time. Let's get it off. Now, we're not going to address that today. Why? It was just filed. It was just filed. The state has an opportunity to respond, reply, and the court will have a hearing. Right now, the court intends to address it on the record at the early February status hearing. So get it briefed, fully briefed, submitted. In addition, the court can consider it, and the court will take another look at it in light of how Mr. Handte's been conducting himself while on pretrial release. I'm not aware of any issues. So that right now is favoring the motion. And I'm understanding if there are medical reasons, before they were identified to the court, but not in the type of terms that the court felt were so compelling as to grant the motion. But the court will take another look at it in light of the time that's expired and any current medical condition. So I want Mr. Handte and his counsel to know the court's not tone deaf to these requests to remove the GPS. It will be taken up and decided no later than at the February hearing. So let's talk about who does the evaluation. Let's go back in time to February. The court, I don't want to be guilty of hyperbole here, but the court moved a couple mountains to line up 2 evaluators to come to the courthouse on short order in successive days or successive weeks at least to come evaluate Mr. Hillygus at a time when there already was a over request for such people's expertise, and there were really was a shortage of qualified professionals. So the court moved forward as rapidly as it could to line up these evaluations, but they did not happen. Mr. Hillygus did not appear. Right now, I am unaware if there's any current protocol other than the court seeking to set up these evaluations to have Mr. Hillygus reviewed and evaluated. Maybe there's a new normal, maybe there's a new protocol, maybe the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, overseen by Mr. Arascata, is efforting that. Maybe the Washoe County Alternate Public Defender's Office with Mr. Picker, or more, maybe the state has insight to that too. because of the challenges in getting people timely evaluated. But right now, I want to discuss how we move forward with Mr. Hillygus evaluations. I want to discuss when we would possibly set a custody status hearing, and then when we would set a competency hearing, among other things. Mr. Stagey, why don't you give the court the benefit of your thoughts based on what you've just heard from the court and anything the court may have overlooked.
My thoughts on this issue of competency. Of course, we all professionals know that competency can be fluid and often is fluid. This instance, right, we have to go back in time for this, strikes me as sort of, what the psychiatrists will, because of the sort of bizarre views, but not delusional views that the defendant has, are probably not a barrier to competency. That's sort of my experience speaking on this issue. But we all know, of course, that any party can raise competency, which the court rightfully has. As to the procedure of it, I see no reason why we should not follow the ordinary procedure that we would follow with any other defendant, which is to appoint two people qualified to conduct the evaluation.
Who appoints them? Because last time the court took the lead on getting people appointed, the court didn't pick the individuals. Right. The court just emphasized the need to move this forward quickly, so we would hopefully not disrupt the adjudicative process and move the matter along so people didn't have to linger.
Yes.
Is that still the process as you understand it, or is there somebody now, the court ordered, reordered these evaluations, who actually does what?
I will defer to my defense colleagues.
Well, Mr. Gaynor might have some insight too, because this is something that we've been having come up from time to time lately.
Yes, but the issue of sort of expediting, I think, is now, that ship has sailed, given the sort of the wrongdoing of the defendant. I think there's a strong argument for his forfeiture of any sort of complaints about delay by his deliberate and intentional flight from the jurisdiction, and long time flight, very elaborate.
So wait in line like everyone else. Is that it?
Why not? Nothing special about him, I submit, right? As opposed to any other defendant. Nothing special about him, except for that he fled the state. Everything special about him speaks to not moving him ahead of the line for any reason.
All right, what about a Johnston hearing at some time in the foreseeable future here to address his custody status?
The interesting question, because of course competency, you're supposed to suspend proceedings.
I understand that, but
nothing happens when proceedings are suspended. I'm happy to do that. I don't know, that's sort of a role for Ms. Reynolds and Mr. Hillygus, given those very interesting issues of insistence by Mr. Hillygus that he represent himself in the court's appointment of the PDs for standby.
Well, and let's make sure we're clear as the court understands it. He's still representing himself with two asterisks. First asterisk is there is a competency concern. So the decision to allow somebody to represent themselves when there's a competency issue, we are going to do our best to protect him from himself until that issue is resolved. That is one of the reasons the court appointed the Watchung County Public Defender.
Did I just hear that right? I cannot believe
through that process.
how they're gaslighting him.
Is that he still gets to direct the course and scope of his defense to these charges.
Are they trying to say that he's incompetent or incapable of representing himself? Is that what they're trying to say?
And availability.
Of course they are. That's their classic go-to narrative. That's what they do for every freaking case. They invert reality and claim that try to say that you're incompetent when in reality they're the ones that are guilty of what they're saying you are.
I know.
Wow, these bastards have some nerve.
Really, in the court's view, broadens the scope of the standby count.
Go ahead.
Competent. Oh, so in a previous hearing, that same judge said that he was competent enough to represent himself. So he contradicts himself all the time.
Do we have video footage of that? On a
I can,
previous court date, I would imagine.
I don't know. It wasn't in this one. I think it was like a year prior to. This has been going
If
on
we could
for.
find that one, that would be great. I'd love to put the two side by side and point it out.
Yeah, definitely. I'll find it for you for next time.
Cool. Awesome.
So to help them and guide this process until a decision is made on competency. And then we get back to how standby counsel would otherwise ordinarily work.
Yes.
That's where the court's coming from.
Yeah, wise course. I would suggest if we do that, two things, some sort of pleadings, there ought to be pleadings on that subject, so we're not sort of arguing in the dark without the benefit of evidence or facts. And two, we ought to pair that probably with Mr. Handte's, if we're gonna be back here for a bail related issues, let's do that together, I would suggest, as a matter of convenience.
Well, right now, as I mentioned, we have a hearing coming up, I think the second week of February, where we are planning to address multiple pending matters. The court will move this change of custody status request to that hearing as well, unless for some reason counsel have agreed to something outside the motion, or alternatively, the court can't get it in at that time. But I want to have it decided no later than then, because this is important to all involved, particularly to Mr. Handte. We will not have, it's hard to imagine we would have two evaluations and be ready to proceed with the competency hearing by that date, just because of the number of other people who are waiting to be evaluated, and then how long the turnaround is. But again, one of the reasons we're meeting today is the court does want to expedite this. Do I want to jump over somebody else? No, not really. But we have a case that's been pending a long time. We have a defendant set for trial in August, and this case is, depending on Mr. Hillygus' competency, would be jointly tried in August. So there are a lot of reasons the court does not want Mr. Hillygus to linger, having a delay associated with his evaluations and a competency hearing. But any final thoughts on I'm going to hear?
Final thoughts.
Ms. Reynolds.
My
Bastards have no freaking shame.
observation is that the delay has been mostly with people deemed incompetent and being treated to delay. This initial approach,
Evaluations?
yeah.
Seen it right there, folks. This is the system targeting its own citizens. And there's many, many, many more examples of this all around the country occurring.
Not too long.
Okay, before I hear from Ms. Reynolds and Mr. Silverberg, Mr. Gaynor, with respect to the court ordering evaluations, have we been taking the lead, sending out the order and then monitoring it, or has it been a different approach lately?
No, Your Honor, from my experience, the court will do the order and then it rests with defense counsel
To line it up? Okay. So first of all, Ms. Reynolds, welcome. And I saw that you initially filed a notice of appearance, but that's probably the wrong piece of paper. So you filed a notice confirming appointment, which makes sense to the court here. Based on what you've heard, based on what you understand the role of standby counsel is, based on the procedural posture of this case, let's assume you've had a chance to review it, and at this point, maybe you say, Judge, I'm just getting into it, I'm not fully apprised of how we got to this point in time, then I certainly would understand and respect that. But what are your thoughts on issues we've touched on so far, please?
Your Honor, to begin and to start with the competency procedure, a renewed order from this court would be helpful, just given the amount of time that's passed since the prior order.
Okay, who then takes the lead to line up the two evaluations?
And then our office will work with scheduling those evaluations.
Is it with NAFCARE? Is it with a panel now? Because obviously Lakes is not doing this anymore, right?
To my understanding, there is a panel now. It's a little bit quicker if Mr. Hillygus would be willing to do, it's not Zoom, but video visit. Remote. Doctors Pearson and Patterson are our two primary providers who do in-person evaluations at the jail. They are running right now between 4 and 6 weeks. I think if we were to do remote evaluations, those, I think a turnaround time of 30 days would be realistic if I let our office staff know that this was a rush.
Okay,
With respect to a Johnston hearing, we would request one at the court's earliest of convenience. I could be available at that February date. Or I even sooner would be my preference.
okay. Any other thoughts based on your review of the file, any discussions you may have had with Mr. Hillygus, what you've heard today or otherwise?
Your Honor, I have reviewed the file, have met with Mr. Hillygus, and agree with the court that I think competency is the first issue that needs to be resolved.
Fair enough, thank you. Mr. Silverberg, any thoughts or comments on behalf of your client based on what you've heard so far today?
Yes, Your Honor. The state indicated that somehow there should be no rush on this based on Mr. Hillygus' conduct, but it affects Mr. Handte as well. We've got an August trial date, we need to prepare. We need to know right now the state's chosen to try them together. So if Mr. Hillygus is found to be incompetent, then does the entire matter get stayed? There's a lot of clarification that needs to happen. So
sooner rather than later would be best for all.
absolutely, that's number one.
Well, I don't know how, let me just pause there. So you've heard me say 3 times now that I don't want Mr. Hillygus to linger in the jail awaiting this process. I didn't want him to be in jail at all. When he didn't arrive to show up to be evaluated, then all this happened. So, and then it took time to get him back here. But let's look through the front windshield and not the rear view mirror. I'm aligned with the idea that we should move these matters.
Well, I can probably tell you why he didn't want. I mean, it was that I would feel like insulted, my intelligence insulted if they were trying to have me do an evaluation. I know that's how I would feel. I'd be like, fuck that evaluation.
Yeah, it's really institutional, especially, I mean, he's very intelligent.
Right.
there's-
And I'm sure he's very independent too. So being a very similar in nature myself, I totally get where I'd be like, fuck that evaluation. I'd be like, screw that shit. What for
No.
what? I
This-
totally get that. Because you never
Yeah.
expect that. Would never expect that from the system to come at you like that. But that is the tactic that they use in a lot of these cases, folks. Is they try to make you appear as if you're mentally ill or crazy, and that's how they get away with this shit. Because they got doctors in their pockets, folks.
Yep,
They're not supposed to, but they do.
yeah, it's their playbook. It's an old tired playbook.
It's pretty ironic because there's so many patterns we're seeing with a lot of these cases. For example, standby counsel for Roger, for example. Well, Dottie had the same thing, standby counsel. Oh my God, there's so many parallels in the tactics they're using with trying to smear them as crazy. They did that to her daughter when she wouldn't go with them.
Yeah.
And the attempted stealing of her house, for example. In this context, I would imagine it would be for the mother's assets and any property or assets she may have had. And in a lot of these cases, that's what it's about, folks. It's property, money, and land.
Yeah.
And that's what the government is stealing, is targeting its own citizens
Yeah.
to steal their land, their assets, their livelihoods from them. So you got basically have a just, not even, I wouldn't even call it a justice system. I would call it an injustice system, an unjust system of criminals that are posing as judges, lawyers, and clerks, and that are colluding to racketeer the people's hard-earned living wages, property, assets, and anything that we have all ever worked hard for to get our whole lives is being plundered out from under us by our own system, folks. In our local court systems, acting under color of law.
Yes. Absolutely.
We got about 10 more minutes on this one, and then we'll go into the PSA about the current case court date tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Forward, in a reasonably expeditious way. I'm not going to step on other cases, other lawyers, other accused, other criminal justice matters. Those people have the right to have their case heard promptly as well. But I'm trying to telegraph here that it's not lost on the court, that this case has been pending for a while, and let's move it forward.
And then just two issues, Your Honor. I know we're going to address the motion to remove the GPS.
And by the way, I didn't see the confidential exhibit, the medical exhibit.
Just filed it this morning.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Sure.
My mistake. Mr. Handte has a $400 payment due at the end of the month. I'm going to ask the court to suspend that payment for the GPS until there's a ruling on the motion, if the court can.
So do this at the end of this month for the next month?
Yeah. When's it due?
May I comment, Judge?
Sure, if your lawyer allows you to. Hold on.
So on the 30th, he has a payment due. If the payment's not made, then they'll stop monitoring him and he'll probably get a pretrial violation. So I'm just hoping that we can suspend that until we have the hearing. And I don't know if it's a separate agency, so I'm not sure exactly what the court's, I guess what I would request is if that does happen, that the court not violate Mr. Handte while we have this motion pending.
The request is denied. Here's why. Does anyone want to pay $400 that they are not going to need to? No. And I understand money's tight, and for multiple reasons, I get it. The problem is, A, the hearing's in February 10th, 12th, right around there. And B, so we're into that month already. It's not like it's the first or second. And the second reason is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to agree that the GPS can come off. And so that would be premature.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to reiterate to Mr. Handte, if you come here at our hearing and you've been compliant and you're not doing things that make people concerned that you would not appear, or that you are going to leave the area without permission, or that you're going to do anything to try to compromise the jury pool or intimidate a witness, if I hear you're doing well, and based on the length of time, and if I have medical record from a licensed medical professional who says that this is causing you physical distress, I'm going to take a very close look at it and possibly remove that restriction, okay? Now, the other thing is, Ms. DeGainer just reminded me, that hearing is not until February 23rd. It's not the 8th or the 10th or the 12th. So that's when I'm going to have a decision on this. It's 5 weeks from now, and that's just how it has to be. All right, what else?
The only other thing that Mr. Handte wanted me to bring up is, I'm not sure, I've looked at the record, mainly focusing on pending motions, but is there a no contact order between me and Mr.?
While here's my recollection of the order, Mr. Steggy can correct me if I've overlooked something. The order was, while Mr. Hillygus was on pending warrant status, there would be no contact. Is he on pending warrant status? No, he's been picked up on the warrant. Now, that said, that's the first answer, yes. The second answer is the state might say, Judge, take another look at the order, expand it, edit it,
But at
amend
this
it.
point, that hasn't
That
happened.
hasn't happened.
So there's nothing, I don't want Mr. Handte to
Well,
violate the court order.
he would not violate the order. They're co-defendants on a big case. Now, whether it's a good idea, whether he does it with or without your advice, whether Mr. Hillygus wants to chat about whether that's a good idea with Ms. Reynolds, that's another issue. But right now, there is no order preventing contact.
Understood. And
Okay.
I've had all the proper discussions with my client about that proposed communication. I
Okay.
just want to make sure, if he does that he's not in violation of any order
Okay.
at this point.
Okay. Ms. Reynolds, you want to address the court on that point, then Mr. Steggy?
Your Honor, I have no legal argument to add, but I would just like to state on the record that it is a matter of record that the Washoe County District Attorney's Office receives any communication or could monitor any communication that is not between a defendant and their attorney.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fair enough.
But only as to the Handte motion, I had stated the last time we were in court, my intention to address that issue. My trial needs have sort of intervened in that, but the court should anticipate that my response will be both direct to basically spying the same letter and asking for the same relief, as well as my own differing views as to Handte's bail status.
Okay, well, that's why we have a hearing. So just to make sure everyone understood what the message there was, the state's going to have a different view of how Mr. Handte is been performing on, may have a different view on how Mr. Handte's been performing on pretrial release, and whether the court finds excellent performance, should inform the court's decision to change the custody status. The state might say he hasn't been doing what he's supposed to, or the state might say he's been doing everything he's supposed to, but it's a big legal so what? You should continue what's been working. Why change it if it's inspiring great behavior? So I get it. I understand what are likely to be the different views on this point. All right, so here's what we're going to do. And, you know, Mr. Hillygus, I know it's not easy to sit there and listen to people talking about you as though you're not even in the room. The court acknowledges you. I appreciate you're respectful to this process, and I realize that, you know, it's an unusual situation here. But I will say this. The court orally renews its prior order, and we'll put it in writing shortly, that Mr. Hillygus be evaluated by 2 professionals pursuant to statute, one a licensed psychologist and one a licensed psychiatrist. I want to set a hearing on the, go ahead.
I'm sorry, could we just say, it doesn't need to be a psychiatrist and a psychologist, I believe I said, actually, it could be either or.
As in 2 of each?
The statute contemplates a combination of any 2. Could be two of the same
Or 1 of each?
or 1 of each.
Or one of
Thank you
each.
for straightening me out, that's right. I haven't looked at it exactly in a while. Can be 2 psychologists or 2 psychiatrists or 1 psychologist and 1 psychiatrist. All right. The court renews that previous directive. The court will issue an order to that effect. The substantive case against Mr. Hillygus remains stayed pending a determination of competency. I suggest we set the competency hearing on the February 23rd date that we already have for a hearing on motions in Mr. Handte's case. With respect to a Johnston hearing, right now I'm going to pencil it in for that date as well, understanding that, you know, we can all read the Nevada Supreme Court decision. It says prompt, but, you know, prompt is a bit objective and a bit subjective. Unusual case here, unusual fact pattern. Somebody who went to another state and had to be extradited back here. So I want to make sure Mr. Hillygus has a right to ask for his custody status to be changed. But right now, it's going to, unless the court finds good cause to change its approach, it's going to be during the February 23rd hearing. I will make sure we have enough time to cover all these issues on February 23rd. Ms. DeGaynor, what time is the hearing currently set for, and how much time do we have blocked out, please?
Your Honor, it's currently set for 10 a.m. to trail the criminal calendar.
All right, well, let's change that. Let's change that.
Your Honor, the afternoon on that day is open.
All right. Would 1 o'clock work for the state on February 23rd? And then I'll ask the same question for the defense counsel.
Yes.
Yes, all right.
I'll make it work.
You'll make it work, and as well. All right, so 1 o'clock, February 23rd, and we'll have the entire afternoon. Mr. Steggy, anything else you want to bring up at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor. No.
How about you, Mr. Silver?
Nothing, thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Rennes?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. The court's in recess.
All rise.
Would you like to explain for our viewers what that particular court date was about, and then kind of maybe give them fill in some of the blanks, because it looks like, I guess, there probably wasn't the most recent court date, but kind of explain what happened since then until now, and then what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's start off with the kind of men that Roger and Stu are first, because I think that's important to emphasize.
Yeah, Stewart is a 30-year, he's retired, a 30-year law enforcement officer, peace officer. He was a sheriff and a state highway patrol in Nevada. He's a resident of Nevada for 49 years. And so he's got an impeccable record, and they're treating him like, like a hardened criminal. And
This is
then
a former sheriff in our state, folks. Okay, a man with impeccable integrity, years of service, unquestionable integrity to the point where he's been trusted with I'm sure criminal cases, and when he was a sheriff, of course, right? I would imagine. So I mean, in that line of work, that's a position of authority. Like you have a history like that, and people aren't supposed to question it. So why is the system targeting these people, these men, and for only the act of getting them, Roger's mother out of a care facility she didn't even want to be in? The state's targeting them as for kidnapping and burglary. Why? What do they have to gain? And assets, folks. Think about it.
Well, it all started when Roger's parents, the dad and the mother, were put in guardianship. And so when you're in guardianship, you become property of the state, and you don't property, or you're going to be targeted. You're going to be retaliated against. Yeah, I'm a victim of that myself. So.
Oh, wow. Briefly tell us about what happened in your situation, bro, because I think it's important that people see how rampant this corruption is, really, because it really is.
Yeah, I've been so my mom basically was taken over in guardianship about 4.5 years ago, and she was thrown in a lockdown facility. She had an ankle monitor on her, and they put my sister-in-law put false charges on me and my fiance that has since passed away. So we couldn't go see her, because if we went to see her, we could get arrested. Neither one of us had any run-ins with the law ever. It was very, very traumatic. But so my mom, she was over-medicated in that facility. And she lost 35 pounds. They had her so over-medicated, she couldn't even feed herself. He and I would go in and help her, eat. And then, so, they've taken her house. They take her monthly, her monthly money that she gets, about $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And so thankfully I got her to a better facility. So she's safer now and she's getting better care, but I had to pay about $10,000 for an attorney to get her to there. Why did I have to fight for my mom to get good care? It's just, and I've witnessed hundreds of these cases, the same thing, the same MO. They deem them incompetent prematurely, and then they throw them in a lockdown, over-medicate them to silence them, or kill them. They accelerate their deaths, and they steal all their assets. That's it in a nutshell. They say isolate, medicate, liquidate, terminate, basically.
Oh, wow. It's funny. Like, wait, not funny, but ironic or interesting that those would be what was the terms you use again? The words you used just now?
Isolate, medicate, liquidate, terminate.
Sounds a lot like a Nazi-esque tactics, or not something that would be more Nazi-esque in nature, the way they were going about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, because they cremate. The majority of the time they get cremated, so there's no evidence. So
there you go. This is like tyranny at its most fundamental level that we're seeing in our own country, mind you. And with what's going on in the we're on YouTube, so I have to watch what I say here. Freaking, you suck, YouTube. I hope you go out of business. Because if not, I'm going to make sure you do go out of business, because I have an alternate platform that's going to replace you coming up in the near future called TrueTube, motherfuckers.
There you go.
So anyways, that being said, let's what's going on? What's the court date for tomorrow for Roger and Stu's case? What's going on with that one?
That is basically they're going to talk about Roger's his psych evaluation again. Roger doesn't, he feels, and he's right, they're violating his constitutional right. They're overstepping their boundaries. He doesn't need a psych evaluation, and He's more than competent. I mean, he writes his own court documents. So, and he too is a 30-year retired state employee with good standing. So in my strong opinion, I feel like they target our veterans and they target state employees so that they don't have to pay their retirements. Like they want them all dead so they don't have to pay their retirements and they can keep their money. That's just my personal opinion. But tomorrow the court date is
I would agree with you in that assessment, because I've seen the same thing, and that's what they would have to gain, is it not, in these situations? Well, why would they possibly do that to these poor elderly people, or these poor these poor innocent people? Even, they're not just doing it to the elderly folks; they're doing it to the families and the sons and daughters of these elderly people. They're doing it to the fathers and mothers of these kids in the CPS and family court corruption and foster care corruption. We're seeing it on those two fronts, the APS front. We're seeing it in the medical community with the medical fraud. And I'm not going to say the word, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. And that's because YouTube sucks asshole. Excuse my language. But we have to improvise on occasion. Anyways, so yeah, no, it's insane. It's insanity. I mean, they're targeting the kids and the elderly, and when you have a situation like that where a system's targeting its own citizens, especially the elderly and the kids, they're trying to take you out.
and the disabled
Yeah, disabled too. Yeah.
But tomorrow the court date is at 9 a.m. Pacific time, but they're not going to do Zoom. They actually have someone come in. It's our Nevada judges that come in and record, but it's at the Washoe County court, and it's the Second Judicial District Court at 75 Court Street in Reno, Nevada. 89501 is the zip. And Judge Breslow is the judge in this case. And we're not impressed. He does a lot of he'll say one thing in court and then he'll do another thing after the fact. Like, for example, on January 13th, 2022, he says in court on the hearing, which you can watch, it's minute marker 36 through 38, he specifically says that a GPS is not in order for Stewart in this case. And then the next day he orders it. And Stewart was blindsided. Like,
yeah, that doesn't make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's violating judicial canons. He's not, like, he wasn't letting them speak. That's a violation of judicial canon 2.6, and these people need to be held accountable. So if you watch the video, you can actually file a complaint on any of the judges that you see them violating these kind of, the judicial canons, and hold them accountable. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I didn't realize I was muted. I'm sorry. I said I'm putting the information up on the screen as an overlay for people to see.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's really been, I mean, it's been very stressful for these two men. I mean, they've served time in jail and there's been no hearing. It's going on 5 years, I think, 4.5 years. And all they're doing is just wasting tax dollars, kicking the can down the road, it's just nonsense. I mean, there's no due process. They have constant violations of their protected constitutional rights, 50 pieces of missing exculpatory evidence, and no remedy in sight. This is not our judicial system. This is some hostile takeover of it.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure I'm not muted. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And that is absolutely a hostile takeover. I mean, look at how they're trying to push this shit forward, full steam ahead, especially these last 3 years.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% on that one. Oh, sorry, I'm just bringing this up. There we go. All right, cool. Needed a little bit of a black background so people can see it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Is it look all right? Is it legible on the screen for everybody? For you too?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this should have been dismissed I mean, there's so much evidence. It would seriously take about 5 minutes for people to look at the evidence and be like, what is this? This
Well,
needs to be.
I know, and then in a lot of these cases, there's a shit ton of evidence. Excuse my language, but there's a lot. In a lot of these cases, people have been collecting the evidence, and because they know that this is not lawful, and those of us that have been putting it out there and calling it out, and that's at this point, I think that's our only move. I mean, considering that the system's turned in on its own people.
Yeah. We're actually looking into having a grand jury for We the People. And well, it's in the works. So once that gets up and running, we'll talk about that because it's going to be really good. And we can hold them accountable. The commissioners pay the judges. So you go to your, if they're put on notice, these violators, and they're put on notice and they don't fix what they're doing and they continue, then we go to the commissioners and we tell them, and then they put a freeze on their paycheck and they're not allowed to work until they fix it. And if they don't, then we can get them removed. So it's something new we're trying.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of that option as well. In fact, Dottie and I had to discuss it many times in regards to her case and how we can fight back. So that's definitely an avenue that we should be pursuing at least until we exhaust that option, I think.
Yeah, we have a pretty good group working on it. So I will keep you posted, and we want everybody to be made whole again. Basically, they've been injured. I mean, my mom's been injured, Stewart, Roger.
My mom was injured, just not in the same way that yours, but she was injured.
Right.
And well, she's still a victim of the neglect and the lack of care in some of these systems. And excuse my freaking stutter. Oh God, I hate it when I do that. I don't do that very often, but I'm very self-conscious of it. But yeah, you're right. It's just, this corruption is all tied together. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've seen money trails tying it all together. The fact that these CPS and guardianship program court systems, this court corruption has doctors in their pocket, and how it's just consistently able to get this outcome or this diagnosis every single time. It's so much so that it becomes a definite pattern that you can't really ignore, which is a huge conflict of interest, which is a complete violation of the way that they are obligated to act under their oath.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I'm hearing from that it's at the top and they're just following their orders, but you can't be an order follower and just sell your country out and just be a traitor.
There's such a thing as in the military, there is such a thing as an unlawful or immoral order, and it is every soldier's duty to be able to distinguish what that it would be if they encounter it, and they have an obligation to defy it in some cases if it is indeed an unlawful and an illegal order, or I would say unlawful because the two terms are not exactly interchangeable. But those that know legalese well enough know what I mean.
Yeah, I pray for Stewart and Roger tomorrow, because I mean, Rogers, even the judge commented on it. I feel like it was gaslighting him, but he did comment on how he's lost a lot of weight and he's not doing well, and he's been in a wheelchair because he has vertigo so bad.
Are they seriously doing this to this poor guy? Like, what the hell is wrong with our system that a government or a court system or guardianship? Well, it's a guardianship. His mother was under, right? A guardianship program.
Yes.
That they would do this to an elderly lady that doesn't even want to be where they put her. When she asked her son to get her out of there because this was against her will, they targeted him and his friend and turned them in, and are trying to turn them into criminals, and it's not lawful and it's not right, and it's completely unconstitutional, and it's completely under color of law. And what I noticed a lot is these corrupt courts seem to like to use the tactic of trying to smear their victims as sovereign citizens. Well, if you look up the definition of a sovereign citizen, folks, it says those who think they are above the law. Does it look like we're asking to be above the law, or we think we're above the law? No, we're asking for accountability under the law. It's the courts that are the sovereign citizens in reality, folks. So you see what they do is they project onto everybody else what they are in fact doing.
Yes. It's terrible. Yeah, we got their number. That's for sure. And we are the majority, people. So don't ever stop fighting.
We are. We are.
Yeah.
I mean, all you have to do, folks, is go look at go look at some of the comments on some of these posts on let's say, for example, here's a great, because I love to follow some of these people just to see how much they're getting called out and see what kind of just to be able to see how what stupid blanket statements they're making that we can call out and expose. A lot of the times, you know, like you just going through these comments over the last couple of years, it's gone from looking like everybody's with it to everybody calling it out from every side and every angle, regardless of party, religion, or anything else. Everybody, the one thing that we can all agree on is we all want to be free, right? Every human being. That's all we have to agree on. That's all we have to agree on. And we need to unite under that common goal and that common interest and that common right.
Absolutely.
Wow, man, this is incredible. Like fighting this fight, it's just seeing this level of corruption is like having the power or the ability to affect change on such a level. I never, I never really. I mean, okay, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, right? But that was just some pipe dream, until I felt, just got into the field that I'm in now. But, I know it may come as a shock, but I was once, or kind of still am, a little bit camera shy. So it took me a minute to get over my camera shyness, or I had to force myself to do so. I'm very self-conscious about how I look sometimes and, how I sound. But if I can do that, folks, anybody can. And we all have the tools to be able to do so right now, right at the palm of our fingertips, in our phones, in our computers. We have access to all the information. It's all there at our fingertips. The only choice we have to make is, I'm going to quote Stu, because this is a great quote from a great movie. I'm going to make two different analogies here. We can either get busy living or get busy dying. And that's from everybody I can imagine, those that should know, it's Shawshank Redemption. And another point I want to make is we all have the tools to do this and start becoming digital warriors, start looking for the information, speaking our truth and calling this shit out. We have phones that have apps we can live stream, video, audio, wherever we go. So it's up to us. How are we going to choose to utilize those tools? Are we going to utilize it to listen to bullshit social media video posts that are just that aren't really me? It's just distraction, or are we going to empower ourselves? Because if we're going to do the former, which I see a lot of people doing that, and it's a distraction. It's a huge distraction, but what that does is it distracts them from the actual issues, and it keeps a big portion of them unable to see what's going on, and it keeps them infighting with all the rest of us. And that's a huge gap, folks, that we need to we need to overcome and kind of fill the void on, because these younger generations that have been gaslighted and hoodwinked about everything, it seems like, because they're completely, looks like they're operating on emotion. We have to reach them. But we have a choice. We can either be like people that want to choose to play the victim and bitch and moan about it on social media, or we can empower ourselves and use that tool of the internet, the technology we have at our disposal to empower ourselves, do the research, look for the evidence, because it's out there. A lot of this government-run stuff, these government institutions, for example, NIH is one. They publicly list all their records, all their grant money, their grant proposals, their grant approvals, the funding through what projects, all of that. And you know what? It's going to be a shock to some people, but I think this needs to be, I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it on a separate show. I don't want to get blocked by YouTube and get a second red flag right now, because I'm going to keep that for the school board issue that I'm going to cover. I'm going to definitely do that there mostly. And well, not mostly, but primarily we'll be doing mostly just the school board coverage on the YouTube because of their censorship. So,
do you, Stephen, that don't you feel like they always try to divide us? It's either you're a Republican or Democrat. It's no longer that. This is a bigger. Don't you feel like this is bigger? This is
beyond that. This is so much bigger than, if we don't fight this, folks, there's not going to be any future generations to fight for. They're going to wipe us out. They're going to wipe out future generations. Just all you have to do is look at this narrative and this whole agenda of can't not being able to identify one way or the other what gender somebody might be. Like, come on. Why? What the hell? When has that ever been a freaking thing?
Nonsense.
It's nonsense.
I don't even entertain that nonsense.
I mean, because here's why. Okay, and I'm not saying that people that feel that way as adults don't, they're entitled to it. That's for them. That's their choice. That's their path. But what you don't have a right to do is push it onto kids that are not even capable of making a proper decision or informed decision for themselves, because they're not adults yet. They don't have all the necessary mechanisms to know how to process all that. And what they're doing to these kids is wrong. It's just wrong.
It is wrong.
You don't cross that line. You don't fuck with the kids.
Mm.
Sorry, I forgot to put my virtual camera on. I'm
No,
and nobody can see me. There we go.
Disgusting how they're targeting our kids, but it's us against them. It's the 99% against the 1% that think they're the elites, and they think that we're useless eaters and we're their slaves. And
they do think that. They think we're less than human. They think that they're better than us.
They do.
But guess what? They're not. They're not. They underestimated us magnitudes of probably hundreds of fold. And I would imagine, because look at how things are playing out now.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically either you're a traitor to your country or you're a patriot. One or the other.
Exactly. It's one or the other. There is no gray area here, folks.
Nope. It's no gray area.
And I want to dispel some common myths about how certain people, let me just tell everybody something. What is will you tell our audience? I want to inform everybody that doesn't already know. I'm sure that most of our audience probably does, but for those who don't, what does the abbreviation MAGA stand for? Can you tell us?
MAGA, it's Make America Great Again.
Why would you not want to make your own country a prosperous country again? See, that's what I don't like. Some of these statements being made by some of these people on the other side are just like, what? Doesn't make any freaking sense.
I know.
And it's insanity.
You gotta love your country more than you hate Trump. Get over it. Like, stop hating on Trump. Like, let me
tell everybody, we've all been lied to on such a grand scale, folks. And you have people that aren't aware, that still believe that narrative. They're in for such a rude awakening, because that is completely not even the case. 100%, we can prove every bit of it. And we're going to be doing a premiere of the Epoch Times coverage of the true story of January 6th up in next couple upcoming weeks. I want to air that because I think people have a right to know. And since all those that actually have some footage, and this is going to be a good analysis, because they did a really good and objective coverage on it. Really did. And they had a police expert that talked about protocol and how they were and how that protocol that was being displayed by those in the Capitol Police was not in accordance with how it should be done. They were violating a whole bunch of different things that they should have done.
Right.
And this was allowed to happen because it was made to set up to look like an insurrection, but it wasn't. Okay, here's a perfect historic example. What did Hitler do to the Reichstag building? He burned it down and then blamed it on the Jews, did he not? Mm-hmm. Same scenario, same analogy. It's the same thing happening all over again. It's just this time they're doing it to us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's really appalling. But yeah, they have to wake up, because I have a patriot group close by here. We had a meeting, and basically, when our money isn't worth anything, we're going to have to lean on each other and help each other. You have more together than apart. So we have
all of us human beings, every single one of us, and I want to just clarify something for everybody that may be under the mistaken impression that we don't want freedom for everybody. We want freedom for every single human being, no matter your race, color, creed, sexual orientation, gender, ideology. As long as you don't cross that line with the kids, and if you're going to be under the constitutional law where everybody has rights, when you violate another's rights, in the process of having your own, that is not something that is acceptable. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. You can't violate another's rights in the process of having your own. It doesn't work like that. Equal rights means equal rights across all boundaries, all barriers, evenly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, everybody should. I think the majority of Americans are good. They're God-fearing, hardworking, trustworthy, and love everyone.
Absolutely.
We're fun-loving people. We don't.
We're good people. We're good people. A
Yeah,
lot of us, the vast majority of us are good people.
Right, exactly. I don't go looking to harm anybody. I just try to help people and love people.
Right.
Now, I don't go around judging people and you know,
It's not our place to judge other people. Only God, only the man upstairs can do that, folks, at least in my opinion.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I can help someone, I do every time. You can, I mean, I know a lot
Me
of
too.
people in the country. If I can help them, I do. Write a letter, make a phone call, whatever I can do to help.
Draw up a legal document. You know, that's one of the things many things that I do to help people, you know, in my community as well.
Okay, cool. That's good to know.
I do legal paperwork on the side, by the way. Just FYI.
All right, I'm gonna hit you up on that. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got to help each other right now. It's just the way that it is, and
Yeah,
I don't,
absolutely.
you know.
We all have far more in common that unites us, folks, than we do that divides us. And these tyrants in power that are pushing all of this on us, they are only a minuscule percentage of the vast majority of the population, which is the vast majority of us are all on the same page. I mean, you see it in the comments on social media now. You see it in the streets, in your local communities. You see it at these fake these fake little protests that seem to be put on display like that, where it seems too something about it just ain't right, and you suspect that it's an op or a setup. But even those, you got nobody hardly even participated in that. But then when you got, it's such an obvious tilt of the scales. I mean, I think everybody sees it even in their daily community. I think it's affecting everybody on a level now where they can't deny it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and we just need to recognize that what they've been trying to do, folks, is divide us. That's why they're pushing this white supremacist narrative, with our side, and then that's why they're pushing this other narrative from the opposite angle. Look, what we got to realize is we got corruption on both sides. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, in the middle. It does not freaking matter. That's the distraction.
Yeah.
The point is that we have corrupt officials in every aspect of our society that are colluding and committing crimes. I mean, they're committing practically war crimes. They're violating human rights. They're committing genocide in a lot of cases with this medical fraud. You know.
Yep. This one lady, she took her husband into the hospital for a urinary tract infection. Next thing she knows, he's on a ventilator. So she said, I want to take him to the Cleveland Clinic. And they said, and she's like, they were like, why? And he's declining. And then she asked for a patient advocate. They had her trespassed. They had her arrested for trying to help her husband.
Wow.
And she 3 weeks. Well, in the meantime, the hospital calls this guardian. He's part of the guardianship mill around here. And he's been preying upon her and her husband ever since. And I mean, he's colluding with Adult Protective Services. There's nothing wrong with the care she provides. She provides 24-hour care at home. He's paraplegic, and she's been taking care of him for 20 years. And he was in the Cleveland Clinic, and they found him there and were trying to make stuff up that there were all these complaints with APS, and they were all
they're case fixing. They're case fixing in a lot of these cases.
So anybody that does that, what we say is request a certified, notarized affidavit from that person making the complaint. Because if they're going to put that on paper in writing, no more hearsay. You got to prove your complaint is real, right? You can't just do any hearsay on the stuff anymore.
Right. And, but it's funny because like they seem to be able to get away with, convicting people, and sentencing people on hearsay alone.
Mhm.
Yeah. When you bring that hard evidence and receipts, they don't ever get filed.
They don't look at them. No,
No,
they don't.
they ignore it. They can't.
Mhm.
You can't ignore one group's set of evidence and then only show the others, folks. When you have that situation going on and that dynamic, that is clear and obvious corruption at the highest level and case fixing, and then probably a whole lot more too, including RICO.
Yep, exactly. I'm a victim of RICO too. My fiance passed away a couple years ago, and he made me his executor, the guardian of his daughter, and his trustee over his trust. Well, he didn't really have any money, but I fixed his house up and I sold it and I made money, and they just stole $48,000 from me and kicked me off as his trustee. So they're not honoring his wishes, and they robbed me. And
That's so fucked up. Excuse my language, but that's so messed up.
it's sick. I mean, they're
It
very
is very sick. It's beyond sick. It's twistedly sick.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough when you lose somebody, then you have to go through this additional abuse by the courts that are supposed
Right.
to be.
There to protect you, but in reality, they're targeting you and
Mhm.
people and citizens. Their own. Oh my God! It's holy crap! It's really bad. Like I mean, I'm seeing that with the pro bono lawyers, the public defenders, even the paid for lawyers are colluding and now it's like it's literally that freaking bad, folks. Because even the paid lawyers, if they defend you, it's career suicide or even death. Like a lot of these lawyers have been taken out or executed, and hit style. And then made to look like an accident or a car accident, or they were just going down the street and somebody hit him with the car and they died accidentally all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know what's going on. We just have to find a solution to it and put a stop
Yes.
to it. Because although they're in positions of power, they can be booted out because they're
Yes.
for oaths.
How do you make them nervous? You put them on blast. And how do you do that when you have a mainstream media that's colluding with the government to silence the people? That means it falls to us, we the people, the citizens, to do the work. So that means we in the alt media, we everyday U.S. citizens of the world, we need to start stepping up and broadcasting the truth and doing our part. We can all do this. I'm this news for us is really just it's my passion project, my kind of my side project, but like in my professional life, and I'm an IT professional. That's what I do for a living. I'm a software engineer. I've been in the field since '98. But this is what I do in my free time. If I can do this, we can all do this. We all have access to Zoom. We all have access to stuff like Canva, other video editing programs. We can make our filters. We can make our intros, our content. I mean, we're witnessing a renaissance of an explosion in a renaissance of information, of truth. And now, like, especially with the way the mainstream is just like they've literally put the last nail in their own coffin on both sides. I'm convinced of it because, like, look at it, it's imploding. You can't deny that.
Don't watch it. I haven't watched it in a long time.
And everybody that I've talked to in my immediate family, even in my extended family, have all said they haven't watched it for a long time either. Like the vast majority of them. So, like, I'm pretty sure that those that still do are pretty much those numbers we're seeing get lost. From Fox, for example, like what was it, like half the viewers they had? I would imagine those are probably like the holdouts, the normie holdouts that are just now seeing stuff for the way it is, but the vast majority of people, and in my circles, are like, they started watching that shit years ago, me too included. I mean, well, now I watch it just to call out their propaganda, but of course, but I wouldn't watch it for years and years because I already knew.
Yeah, exactly. But those people that you call normies that they just go about their day and they just kind of do the same thing.
Go along to get along. I'm a drone. Oh, what should I do? Big government? Jump? Yes, sir. Jump. How high?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's uncomfortable to know the truth, what's happening, but you can't just get blindsided. So I drip information to
It's
people.
better to know and be prepared than not to know and be caught off guard.
Exactly. Yeah. I try to warn people and get them prepared. I mean, that's all I can do. I mean, in our own capacity, and I do shows like this if I can. I get the information out there.
Yeah,
I have a lot.
me as well.
Mhm.
We got to do our part in whatever way we can. If we have a skill set that we think we can utilize for this fight, folks, we need to utilize it. I have a lot of different skill sets myself. For example, I know when I was in high school, I used to do video editing with. I could take 2 VCRs. You remember the method, right? Back in the day, and then I'd splice it. I'd pause one. Well, I would have one that I wanted to get the clips from that I wanted to put onto the other tape. So what I would do is I would get to the point where I wanted to start off with, right? And then on the one I'm recording on, I hit record. And then what you do is when you're ready to cut, you press pause while it's recording and it stops the recording. And then you just unpause it when you're at your next segment and boom, 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 you can make little clips. But yeah, I was doing that back in the day too. So I do have experience in video editing. Like, so that, for example, to give our viewers an example, just something, even something that trivial, like, a hobby that you may have a skill set and you can utilize that and do something with it. Like that, in my case, that's one example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the legalese thing, for example, legal paperwork thing. I didn't start doing that until like the last 5-6 years. And I didn't even know I had a knack for it until I started doing it. I was like, holy shit, I'm really good at this.
That's good.
But we can all utilize our skills to help each other. That's why I'm doing the advocacy work. We all need to start standing up for each other, because in defending each other, we will remain free.
Exactly. That's what I try to. I mean, I go to court hearings in person and on Zoom whenever I can to help people and be there for them. It means so much when you're alone and you have somebody, because I know other people did that for me, and it meant the world to me. So I'm glad that they are doing that.
Absolutely. Do you want to say any last final words before we wrap it up? I think we got a good hour, 20 minutes in. That was great.
Yeah, anybody that can go and support Roger and Stewart tomorrow in Reno at the 2nd Judicial District Court, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you can't go, just pray for them, because they're going through so much and they need to be free. This needs to be dismissed. Like yesterday, they had a civil case that was dismissed in April last month, I believe. So that was a case where the daughter, Susan's daughter, Roger's sister, sued the nursing home, and then the nursing home turned around and sued Roger, Stewart, and this other guy, Tracy Griffith. So they dropped that. So there is no civil case. There's no victim. The victim is dead, Susan Hillygus. So what is this? This is ridiculous. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It is.
It really is. 1 second, folks. I'm just going to update this text and I'll have it on the screen for you guys, for our viewers. If anybody wants to help out and go and show up and fight for these 2 young, or I don't, maybe wrong word, 2 young at soul members of the community who have served their community for decades in lines of work that should earn them the highest calibers of respect, but are not being given. Let's show up and support these folks. Let's show up and support Stewart and Roger.
They're both good.
They need our help right now. And in defending each other and defending them, we'll remain free, folks, because if this can happen to them, this can happen to any one of us. Period.
Absolutely.
All right, let me just update this real quick. And then I'll leave it on there and we'll wrap it up.
There are a lot of others in that jail too that are being victimized. They're just being held there and they haven't committed a crime. I mean, it's just allegations. So what is this? Like, why are they're doing this? And we really need to stop the funding for the judiciary and the jails, because we're paying for our own abuse, people. It needs to stop.
Sorry, the text was all like on one line. I couldn't get it to go in word wrap. I had to redo it 1 second. Sorry, give me a minute, folks, and then we'll have that up there for you and we'll wrap it up.
I'll try to give a better heads up if there's another hearing after this, but let's hope that this gets dismissed.
Yes, because it's completely unlawful. There's no justification for what they're doing to these men. It's not right. Just simply for trying to protect his mother and get her out of a situation she didn't even want to be in. They were holding her against her will, folks.
Exactly.
How is that right? How is that right?
Yeah, she had the right to leave. She was in an assisted living. She wasn't in a lockdown facility or anything. She had the right to leave, and she wanted to, and it's on video. If they would just look at the video, they would even see that she was happily leaving, you know. It's so sad that she died 2 months after, and there's foul play there, we believe. I mean, she wasn't really in bad shape when this happened.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a red flag when you have a situation like that.
Yeah, they did that silver alert. They swatted Roger. They green lighted him. They were going to kill him if they saw him. Like if they saw him in the window, they were going to kill him. And thankfully he didn't get killed. But 2 months after that, yeah, she was gone.
I think everybody can see that. Okay, I just added that little paragraph at the top. I kind of modified it to let you kind of give it a little more context. Like I added the "were unlawfully," and a couple other modifications. I hope you don't mind, but that gives a good description for our viewers, I think.
Very good. Thank you.
So thank you for joining us, folks. We need your help. Show up and support Roger Hillygus and Stewart Handte. How do you pronounce? Is it Handte?
Handte.
Handte, okay. And Stewart Handte, and show up, be a set of eyes for them. The more people, the better, because when we have court watchers and we have eyes on these corrupt officials, they are far less likely to do criminal acts because they know they're being watched. That's how we apply the pressure, folks. That's what the original purpose of freedom of the press was intended for, to act as checks and balances against corrupt officials. And since the mainstream's not doing their job anymore, we are, because we are the new media. And if you're watching this, folks, you are the revolution. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to read this aloud for our viewers real quick before we wrap that up and end the live. Roger Hillygus and Stewart Handte need your support, please. They are back in court tomorrow morning in Reno, Nevada. Court watchers and patriots needed. Roger and Stewart were unlawfully charged with alleged kidnapping and burglary of Roger's own mother from an assisted living center where she was being held by the state against her will. Date tomorrow, Monday, May 15th, 2023. Time 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Where? 2nd Judicial District Court. Judge Barry L. Breslow. Address 75 Court Street, Reno, Nevada 89501. Phone number 775-328-3110. This should have been dismissed a couple of years ago, but it has turned into a corrupt personal vendetta. I don't know how long it will last, but if you can be there and show support for any of it, it is greatly appreciated. One day it might be us either being arrested or being taken by guardianship of the state. Green quarters for parking meters. Thank you in advance for your support, and God bless. Let's show up and support these men, folks. They're being unlawfully and unjustly persecuted. Not prosecuted, persecuted. Let's keep that in mind. Good night.